Well, welcome into the Gurus on Reality podcast, Survivor 49, the episode before the finale. Xavier Aguiar, Mike Testa. We are at a loss for words, and we can't say that very often. Two guys that like to talk quite a bit, if you couldn't tell. And that Survivor episode was one of the most bewildering and wild rides we have seen in a long time. And I don't even want to do any intro stuff besides say, please like and subscribe to the
Yeah.
pod and make sure you're keeping up with all the Gurus content. We just did a NFL pod right before this, so make sure to check that out after this episode. But let's just rip right into this episode because we can't waste any time. There is so much to talk about. So the episode starts, this crazy episode starts in a pretty familiar place, which is after Tribal Council. We are following the yellow Sophie vote from last episode, and Sage is elated. And this is going to be a theme throughout this entire episode that Sage thinks she did the right thing by voting out yellow Sophie, and man, does that look worse by the second. And Savannah says something that I immediately laughed at early in this episode. She says, this group will never work together again. Well, yeah, there's no one else left, so that's impossible. But regardless, we are pretty much plopped down afterwards, and pretty much the only thing from the open that I took out as being important was Rizzo keeps really honing in on the fact that his idol expires at Final Six, which I put down. Why would that be the cutoff? Why would it be different? And no one seems to question this,
I wrote that
which
down
I
too.
think is a little bit weird. And yeah, what do you make about this open? Because this open was really strange, and that Rizzo thing was kind of lingering throughout the episode. But why do you think they bought that so easily?
I said there's no way people actually buy that the theory of it expires the final six. We've seen people lie about when their idol expires. First of all, idols either expire right at the next tribal council or they grow into a full idol. And what a full idol means is that it is used up until the very end, which is final five in this scenario, up until you can no longer vote.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. There's some that are pre-merge as well. So you can have like the pre-merge idol, you can have the next tribal idol, or you have one that grows into a full idol.
Yeah,
so none of what I just said is this. So what?
No, at this point we are now in the merge, and this idol, if he still has it, which of course we see that he does, he played a fake one, but this real idol that he now very much has, we know that this is a full-grown idol. You don't just keep it for that long because it expires at 6. So I was shocked that no one actually questioned. We saw there was so many times throughout the episode where Christina, Sage, and Steven were all three together. Did none of them say, hey, do you really buy that Rizzo's idol expires at final 6? Did it never come across? Because there's no way. I would have been like, first of all, there's no way. I've seen Tony lie about when his idol expires. When people say their idol expires here, that probably means that they're lying because it's like, oh yeah, by the way, this idol, it's a special idol. It actually expires at final 6, not final 5. Why would you actually tell them that? There's no way that.
Yeah, because what does Rizzo gain? I suppose he gains an extra week, but that air of mystery is what has made Rizzo's idol in particular so powerful, is the fact that they have absolutely no read
idea
when he's been able to play it. And I
Why would you
saw
tell
it
them?
early on throughout this saga, Mike, there was some that were saying they're not worried about the idol because they're not worried about Rizzo. And that just couldn't be further from the truth, because it's been clear based off these people's words that they've wanted to get out Savannah and Rizzo this entire time. So if they weren't worried about it, it would have happened already. So that notion is completely destroyed, particularly for Savannah, who it feels like every episode we get 3 confessionals from the likes of Christina and Sage and Steven talking about how desperately they want Savannah out of this game. So clearly this idol has been uber important. And for the fact for Rizzo to just kind of give up this information, it seemed sketchy from the beginning.
Somehow they all bought it. I don't know. And you keep saying that their words suggest that they want to take out Savannah and Rizzo. If they really wanted to do that, they would have cut her at the knees already, and that means voting out Sophie, which they have still yet to do. So, yes, they technically say they want to get rid of Savannah and Rizzo, but their actions are suggesting that they don't, because they have had ample opportunities to vote out Sophie, which is their closest ally, the 3, and they've had opportunities when either Savannah would win an immunity necklace, or when Rizzo still is kind of flaunting out his idol. They've had so many opportunities to cut them at the knees and vote out Blue, or in this case, just Sophie at this point, and they have yet to do so. So are they really that worried about them? Or their actions suggest that they're not. They keep eating their own instead of going after the one person that is directly working with Rizzo and Savannah, and she somehow keeps skating by.
Yeah, they had a monumental numbers advantage that they have been not able to capitalize on. And we're dead even now. It's 3-3. So there's really no more numerical advantage except for Steven's block a vote, which is another theme of this episode that we're going to save for later. But let's transition now into the reward challenge, where Jeff says off rip that we will never see this challenge again. And I was skeptical immediately because this is Survivor. This is the new era. And we see the same kind of challenge over and over again. But regardless, that was just a little quip I had to throw in there. This was sort of fun. It was about, getting some bags out from an obstacle course, trying to maneuver a rope, get these weighted bags out, these weighted sandbags, and eventually is the victor. Steven had a large lead. It didn't really matter. It seems very tough to kind of balance the sandbag on top of this large pole, which is what they were trying to do. And Savannah gets a lucky shot and she wins. So the reward for this are tacos, margaritas, this whole Mexican feast, letters from home, and a night in the sanctuary. And she chooses Rizzo first, who is just beside himself. He's crying, and he's crying a lot
Of
here.
course.
And then she chooses Sophie, which I thought was weird because they were acting like that was so surprising. And I was like, I understand. Normally, back at like the final 10, even final 8, we've talked numerous times about how you don't want to bring your entire alliance because you want someone kind of back at camp to kind of gauge what's going on. But in this case, there's no one else to really gauge. You know what the other side's thinking. What do you gain from this? So I thought it was a little bit annoying that the likes of Sage and Christina in particular were upset with Savannah's decision. What did you expect here? She's choosing who she likes. You have been trying to get her out. Again, your words, not mine, this entire time. So the fact that Sage is crying, and I understand some of that is just, missing out on the letters from home, missing out on the sanctuary, but aren't you tired of these wild reactions to missing out on reward that you don't earn and you're not aligned with the person that wins the reward?
It's so ridiculous. If this was like a final 7, final 8, yeah, maybe don't bring your friends and then leave the other 4 or 5 to strategize against you. But in this case, it's 3-on-3. You bring your alliance, you fill their bellies. You try to win the next immunity challenge because obviously that's the biggest one here. You're trying to fuel people to win immunity. So why in the world would you bring Sage or Christina, or of course not Steven, who could possibly win immunity and then send you home? So that was another one. It's like, and I hope we don't spend too much on Sage today, but both challenges.
We're gonna have to later.
I know,
but we'll
I know,
zoom
I
through
know.
this now.
I know, but both Sage in both the reward and the immunity. Sage with the the making the faces of hoping that Savannah, who's just clearly better than her, and then on all these challenges they do, it don't really matter what challenge they do. It just seems like Sage isn't like better than her at much. So it just feels like she wants to be brought on these rewards, but there was never any chance she was going to bring. I wrote down immediately she's gonna win the challenge because she got the edit made with Jeff when Jeff asked everybody his ceremonies thing every time. He's like, "How's everybody doing?" Savannah's made the edit. I was like, okay, either Savannah's going to win the reward challenge or she's going to get left behind in Liz fashion and be very upset about not eating food. She ended up winning the reward and taking home obviously her alliance, which is a no brainer. So I don't know why Sage was never even. I think she might have been the last pick in this situation, or maybe Steven would have been the last pick. But no, Sage was never going to win that challenge or be taken on that challenge unless Steven won it.
No, it never seemed plausible. And back at base camp, it seems like Steven is trying to console Sage and Christina. So he does the thing that just hurt my head immediately. He shares that he has a block a vote because on this episode, we're just sharing everything we have for some reason. And it seems again, they all want to take out Savannah. Man, will that be interesting later. So Savannah, yet again, is the initial vote out plan. And what do we think about the fact that they've yet to learn their lesson here? Because it seems like every time Savannah is the initial vote out plan, she either wins immunity or something dramatically changes. So I do find it comical that they keep doing it. They keep filling the early parts of these episodes, and this is clearly an editor's choice, but the players are making it easy for them to do, where it's, you know what, Savannah did this thing we don't like, which isn't really Savannah's fault. She won a reward, God forbid, and we're going to want to take her out now. Isn't that just getting a little bit tiresome now?
I would like for them to wait until after the immunity challenge to target everyone they target before their immunity challenge ends up winning the immunity challenge. Maybe at this point going forward, this alliance that has been decimated the last 5 episodes. Maybe hold your thoughts until after the challenge to strategize, because you always try to go after Savannah, then she wins immunity. Maybe here's an idea. Maybe target Sophie or Rizzo first, and then let's see what happens after that. Okay, I don't know. Just an idea. But again, it's pretty clear that to this island, these people are most threatened by Savannah, and we say it every week at this point. It feels like either Savannah wins immunity or she has the in this case in last week's episode she had the advantage of an extra vote and she used it to vote out Jawan. Or that was 2 episodes ago. Obviously, last episode she won immunity and they had to pivot to Yellow Sophie. So Steven won, but they had to pivot to Yellow Sophie anyways. But either way, she's either winning them or she has an advantage to save herself essentially. Or in last week's episode, Sage just weirdly panicked and used some revenge to turn on Yellow Sophie.
Yeah, she was vulnerable last week, and it seemed like
Right, yeah.
because Yellow Sophie flipped, it kind of took all the heat off Savannah for some reason,
Yeah,
and that was
for
inexplicable.
yeah, keyword for some reason. If they really were threatened by Savannah, they could have voted her out last week because she was actually vulnerable, and they didn't.
And they should have, and I think they probably would have if Yellow Sophie didn't do what she did, which makes it even more perplexing. Because I got up here last week and said that it's like being on the person you're mad at most recently instead of the person you've been mad at the longest. It
Sorry,
just
yeah.
doesn't really line up whatsoever with strategy. But it looked like for a second that Savannah really was on the ropes because earlier in the episode, and I perfectly omitted this for a reason, Soph kind of seemed like she was ready to finally turn on Savannah. She understands this is late in the game. She needs to make a jury move. So right now could be the time to turn on Savannah. But this reward actually changes something. And she says something that I visually cringed when she said it. She suggested that the reward is a sign from God not to turn her back on Rizzo and Savannah. So, Mike, if I sent you a $25 gift card, is that a sign from God that you have to go to Chili's, or is that a sign that I'm a good friend?
I think it's the latter. I think it's a sign that you're a good friend. But
Good.
I mean, maybe
I would hope so, right? So surely Soph didn't give God all the praise here for what Savannah did, which was bring her to the reward. And I only bring this up so much because it seemingly did shift things. This was a clear before and after point. After she said this and after being on the reward, it's clear that she wants to stick with Rizzo and Savannah and not turn her back on them. And we get all the sad stories and whatnot from Rizzo and Savannah and Sophie, and it's all their families, and that's fine. This is a fine example of the sad stories working because it at least is about them as people right now in the game, and it's about their survivor journey. I'm fine with that. But this entire time, as this is all going on, I just cannot believe that Soph was so easily swayed in this moment, all because she had a margarita and a few tacos.
Yeah, she got food in her belly, and that is why, let's be real here, that's why she wanted to stay. She was very appreciative of the food that she was given and the day that she was given by her friends. That's really what the crux of the issue is here. I mean, if I was going to Chick-fil-A and you sent me a Chili's gift card, maybe I would then go to Chili's, but I would probably go to Chick-fil-A later. But yes, I mean, would it sway my opinion that much that Chili's is way better than Chick-fil-A? I don't know, but I mean, clearly in that moment she was just hungry, wanted the loved one letters, wanted the sanctuary beds and pillows and whatnot, and that is what it swayed her over. It's almost like you're a free agent, and you get like an awesome visit with like a 5-year deal on top of that. So it's like it's one of those things where you're a recruit, and you got swayed by this very bougie lifestyle, which was the reward challenge. It was a good reward. In Jeff's words, it was the best reward of the season. You got the whole night there, basically. And that's really what it was. I mean, of course, she liked them anyways. They were her friends, but that just kind of put it over the edge. So, yeah, I mean, maybe she was thinking about flipping, but whenever they bring her on a reward, that solidifies that 3. And we see that every reward. I mean, that's a solidified 3. When you bring someone on a reward this late in the game, you're solidifying numbers.
And what's going back at base camp is almost like it was staged. This was so comical because obviously the 3 on the reward are in the sanctuary, so they're fine. But the 3 at base camp are getting rained on the entire night, and then there are rats infesting the camp. So I put in my notes, are the rats paid actors? This just feels a little bit too good to be true.
Yeah, add insult to injury a little bit.
But it felt like it was kind of sowing further dissension between the 3 at base camp and the 3 on reward, even though that's already existed anyway. Those lines have been drawn. It felt like this was kind of only upping the ante because those 3 at base camp were like, hey, we're in the rain with rats. They kind of are extra upset. And that's kind of where we leave off before we get to the comp. And this immunity comp is something, it's okay, it's fine. I didn't care for it too much because I thought in a comp like this, the win seemed to play too big of a factor where the win would just take the ball sometimes if you were kind of on the end.
Big
and
win
so, yeah, it was basically, you were balancing on one foot on this little, we'll call it a spoon, if you will, this kind of spoon, and there was a ball on the end of the spoon. And it was as simple as you had to balance the ball on the spoon for the longest. But the wind seemed to play a big factor where it seemed like on Rizzo's in particular, the wind just took the ball. And it seems like it happened to Steven as well. And even Sophie was complaining about the wind, even though I think hers was more her own fault than the wind. But regardless, the wind was clearly paying a factor. And the last two here are Savannah and Sage. And this is a great battle. And I couldn't believe Sage stayed in this long. And she was doing the thing we've seen other people do. I remember Jawan did it earlier in the season, where she's just thanking everyone in her life. And thank you, Grandma. And thank you, my fourth grade teacher. And doing this whole bit. And for a second, I thought she was going to win this. I thought she had it. Savannah looked like she was a little bit uneasy. Her ball was kind of at the edge of that spoon where we saw some of the other people. The wind just took it, and you can't really do anything at that point. But sure enough, Jeff says 25 minutes. This is the new record after the 24, the previous record. She immediately starts to slip. She stays in for an extra 10 minutes, but she just can't do it. It seems more mental than anything, but regardless, she falls. Vanna wins immunity again. It is her third. She is nearing really special territory, as Jeff was sure to mention after the comp. Right now, this is what changes the entire episode. And I want to hear your thoughts on this comp and Savannah's win. Because if you're looking from the outside in, it seems like from Sage and Steven and Christina's perspective, the only move you can make now is Blue Sophie, because no one's questioning Rizzo's idol, and Savannah just won immunity. So what do you think about how this turned out and the fact that presumably at this point, they were like, oh my God, I guess we have to go Blue Sophie?
Yeah, there was no other choice. No one else is on the board. I when I saw this challenge immediately, I said, okay, I believe Savannah will win this one. And in that case, obviously Rizzo has his idol. Savannah won the immunity challenge. They would have, even how dumb they are, they would have no choice now but to take out the one person that is working with Rizzo and Savannah. Cut them at the knees. As we've said at the Alex vote and we said at the Juwan vote, maybe they'll just cut Sophie out here and then it's just them two on an island. What can they do, really? They did not do that. The episode, they finally have a chance to do that now. So now they're actually thinking it. The previous episodes, they weren't even really thinking it. Sophie wasn't on anyone's radar. Now she's like the last-ditch resort plan C, essentially, because, like I said, Savannah's off the table now, and we assume that Rizzo's using his idol tonight, even though I never really envisioned him using it. But they're sold, basically. So he already sold the other alliance that it expires tonight. I'm using it. I can't go anywhere. Might as well not even put any votes on me. So yes, their only choice now, and you see Rizzo and Steven talking, they come together, and they come to the conclusion, Rizzo even says, he's like, I guess you guys are going to try to vote out Blue Sophie, and Steven's like, yeah, I mean, there's really no other choice, I guess we have to now, I want to get out Savannah, but yeah, this has to be Blue Sophie. During the challenge, I mean, we do have to eventually come to the, your guys, Rizzo has not been great at these challenges now, these individual immunity challenges, he has really been, it's not that he's losing them. He's like out first, like almost out on all of them. At least on these.
Yeah, in this one, it seemed like it was more the elements than him, but it doesn't matter. This is just one isolated challenge. I completely agree with you. And part of it, it seems like he does well for like half of it, and then just kind of falls off for whatever reason. He gets stuck. He can't do something. Whatever. It feels like he kind of has to win one of these to solidify his game. Yeah. Even though we'll talk about, I think at this point he's undisputably playing the best game, but perception is everything. And the perception right now, seemingly, is that Savannah is the head of the snake, Rizzo is kind of second in command, but Sophie is kind of a powerful underling that they have to kind of cut off from underneath them. And that is kind of causing Rizzo's endgame to be in question at this point, because I don't think he's getting a ton of respect for what he's doing. It seems like we are respecting his game a lot more because we know a lot more, because we're watching on TV. Where it seems like these other people aren't necessarily aware in the moment how much Rizzo is actually influencing everything, and he does again today. But yeah, he needs to show out a little bit better, because even Sophie has had some moments in these challenges now. Sage, I think this is her second one she's done decent in. Close, the only other person that has been kind of just as much of a flop as Rizzo is Christina, but she has no win equity, so it doesn't really matter.
You don't want to be in those conversations.
No, it just doesn't matter.
But I was thinking maybe I would hold out for a puzzle for Rizzo, but as we saw in the first episode, he said, oh, if it's a puzzle, I'm cooked. So maybe he's not going to those either. So we don't know.
Or perhaps that was put in because eventually he does win a puzzle. Perhaps that's kind of a foreshadowing moment. But I don't know.
Yeah.
But Mike, the second part of this episode revolves around what Soph spills. at the reward, which is she spills her knowledge is power advantage, which we were adamant that she should not tell a soul
Anybody.
about this. It was her best move that she had in her arsenal. The
That's
fact
why
that
it's
she
so
hadn't
powerful.
used it. And we complained that she knew for a fact that MC had an idol. She knew for a fact that Christina had an idol, and she did not play it. And at this point, she knows that Steven has an advantage, and she knows that Rizzo has an advantage. So at this point, it seems like finally this is the right time to use it, but by revealing it, it gets a little sticky because now it seems like Rizzo and Savannah are like, yeah, you're going to use it to our betterment? Sure, awesome. Whereas we were talking about how, what if he just takes Rizzo's idol? That's a winner move. That's a massive move that could really bolster her resume. And we'll talk about what she could have done later, but we get to the second half, and Rizzo understands that Blue Sophie is the vote. And I'm going to keep calling her Blue Sophie on accident. That's what she was the entire season.
Yes.
I'll try to keep calling her Sophie from now on. So Rizzo knows Sophie's the vote. He's not an idiot. He knows that they think he's fine, and Savannah is obviously fine because she has the necklace. So he is trying to plant seeds to Sage that, Sage, you can't beat Steven. Are you kidding me? You can't beat him in anything. He's more likable than you. He's going to beat you in these comps. And it seems like this resonates, which to me is insane. But this is Rizzo again, planting the seeds before the vote and just stirring up a little bit of controversy on the other side to his advantage. And then Sage tries to relay this information to Christina, who immediately kiboshes it. She's like,
Shut it down.
why would we do that? He's the only person that can probably beat Savannah, which I'm not sure is totally true. I think some of these later challenges might be crapshoots, so it could be anyone's game. But at this point, it's not necessarily a wrong assessment because the only one winning that is left is Savannah. So I think that's it. And Steven, of course, yes. And Steven, of course. So it's a fine analysis on her part, even though I think some of these later challenges get a little wonky. But regardless, I understand what she's saying, and I think that's a good point. I even put in my notes her first good point of the entire season. I actually thought that was great. So she immediately loses this by going up to Steven and saying, well, Steven, like, it couldn't be you because we need you to beat Savannah. And Steven's like, wait, what? Why are you telling me this? Why are you even considering this? Like, what? And Christina's, no, I'm just playing. I'm just kidding.
Just a little word on it.
Yeah, Steven talks about how it's like a little kid who eats pasta and it gets all over their face, and that is so appropriate. That's been Christina's entire game, and I'm going to go in on her in a little bit, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But right before Tribal, and I'm rushing to get to Tribal because we have so much to talk about at Tribal. So right before Tribal, Rizzo does something that I can't defend. I was just talking about how he's playing the best game. This is his one misstep in the last 2 months, it feels like, of television. He admits that his idol actually isn't expiring. Why would he admit that? I have no idea. I put WTF in all caps. What are you doing? So then we get this shot of Sophie being a little bit torn on whether to use her knowledge as power, whether to use it on Rizzo, whether to use it on Steven. And before we get to Tribal, I want to bring up this point because I don't know. I haven't seen anyone talk about this besides me and you, so I want to bring it up now. Soph thought she was the vote, presumably, and maybe she didn't based off events. But presumably in this world, we are led to believe, based off the editing, that Sophie thinks there is a real possibility that she is going to get voted out tonight because Steven has some advantage and she just doesn't know what it is, and that's that. So Sophie could either A, take a stab at an unknown advantage. She knows he has it, but she doesn't know the intricacies of it. So there's either plan A, so whatever avenue leads to that, or B, which is the obvious avenue, in my opinion. Now, Mike, before I say this, I want to ask a clarifying question because I couldn't get an answer online when I looked it up and I was looking on Twitter. Could she have played the knowledge is power before the votes were read? Could she play it after they voted but before the votes were read? No.
No, she cannot.
Okay. So that makes what I'm about to say a little bit more complicated. If she took Rizzo's idol, she could have either played it on Rizzo, kind of done like a reverse Jinx kind of thing, where she takes it from Rizzo but plays it on him, so kind of saves them both. Or she could have just played it on herself and said, Rizzo, sayonara, thanks for coming. You've been tormenting us this entire time. You've been running this game. You're out of here. So that is what we have before Tribal. I just want to paint the picture. She could either take a risk as Steven's advantage, which she knows she has, but doesn't know the intricacies. So that could lead either way. That could lead to her being screwed or Steven getting voted out, or she could take path B, where no matter what, she is safe. And I just want to bring that up. And now we are getting to tribal. Do you have any words before we get to tribal?
Before we get to tribal, I want to go in more on Christina and Sage. Just to
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we have a lot on Christina and Sage here. So after the challenge, Steven and Rizzo talk. Obviously, Rizzo's trying to get all the information he can. He then goes to Sage, like you mentioned. Sage is actually thinking about voting out Steven, which again, it shocks both of us. Sage then tells Christina that she wants to target Steven. Obviously, Christina's flabbergasted. Christina goes to Steven. Again, it's like a telephone here, but this is exactly what Rizzo did to the Alex vote, by the way. He was able to get the information and kind of let somebody then talk to somebody else, and then somehow one thing leads to another. Christina goes to Steven and tells him that she floated the idea of writing his name down. Stop talking! Stop talking! She was like, I was thinking either I got to write your name down and save myself, or maybe we can just do this other thing with Blue Sophie. What are you doing? Don't tell him that. Especially after you just shut it down, like with Sage, who was floating the idea out. Why would you then run and tell Steven, yeah, we were actually considering, writing your name down? And then obviously Steven links up with Sage, and he's just like, this is a sloppy player we're working with here. Christina's just a sloppy player. It's like, how can you work with her as an ally? And I'm like, they're not going to turn on Christina right now, Final Six, right? They're not going to do that. But everything was going around. I was like, who's going to get voted out tonight? I still think it's going to be Steven, but like, the people he's working with are so stupid, they're actually either considering writing him down and voting him out, even though he could possibly, right now, he's getting them a numbers advantage. For the first time in a while now, they have the numbers advantage on, and they can get out Rizzo or Sophie if they really want to. They would have a 3-2
Presumably, yes. Every indication is that they are going to be fine. They have no idea about this knowledge is power. This should be clear and cut. They should get out Sophie and move on. Then in this world, in Steven and Christina and Sage's world, the idol's out, Sophie's out, and then you have a 3-2 advantage. It doesn't really matter who wins the necklace. One of Savannah or Rizzo are out, and then you have a 3-1 advantage in the final four. And you have a 75% chance of being the final three. Regardless, you'll get two of you there, and that should be good enough. But for some reason, that is not really a consideration. And before we say anything, let's just get to tribal, and we'll save the rest for after. And so I texted you before the vote happened. I said, if this is a technicality with the knowledge is power, I will be irate. So we're doing the dancing at tribal. Oh my God, Rizzo's playing his idol. Steven has an advantage. We're doing all this foreplay here. And it seems like everyone is buying it. Everyone's like, I mean, we don't really know what cards you could play. Rizzo, since you're talking such a big game, it seems like you're just kind of doing your Rizzo thing, and that's it. You're philosophical where you're like, oh, yeah, I mean, whoever wins tonight is going to win the game, which made me laugh. That's kind of funny. But regardless, so we're doing all that. And then right before we get to vote, Jeff even says it's time to vote. Sophie is like, hey, hold on just 1 second, and whips out the knowledge is power. Everyone's flabbergasted. No one has any idea besides the people she told earlier. This is a true shock moment. And then the moment comes where she either has to choose between asking Steven or Rizzo. And for half a second, I really, really thought when she said, I'm so sorry, that Rizzo was going to be the guy. But it turns out, no, it was Steven. And Steven says no. And with knowledge is power, you have to tell the truth. And that is that. He said no. She's like, huh? And he's like, no, I didn't give it to anyone. No, I didn't have an advantage. And what irates me about this is this should count. There is no reason that this should not count. This was an advantage. Technically, it hadn't been used yet. It was used prior, but it didn't technically. Savannah's vote, she didn't go up to vote yet. It wasn't blocked yet. The vote hadn't happened. So technically, in my eyes, and this is just my opinion,
I know,
before the vote, this should not count. And this annoyed the crap out of me because in my head, even I try to look at this from multiple ways. I try to look at this from a game perspective. I try to look at this from a fan perspective. And I try to look at this from a producer perspective. From none of these perspectives, does making this loophole do anything but annoy all of us.
And it was a loophole. It was a loophole.
Yes, it was a loophole. And it drove me crazy. And we'll talk about why it was stupid anyway. And it shouldn't have came to this. And that's a fine criticism. But regardless, in my opinion, this should have counted.
I was watching Tyson's podcast last week, and numerous other former Survivor players, Sam was on there as well. They were all talking about it, how the knowledge is power has to be used before tribal council. So before you even go to tribal, you have to say, I'm playing it on this person. So when they go to vote tonight, they will not be able to vote. So I immediately thought, okay, well then she cannot use her advantage on him
The
because
block vote, yes.
yes, you're only allowed to use your knowledge is power right before Jeff says it's time to vote. So I knew the second so even in your case, if she's gonna take Rizzo's idol, she has to do it whenever Jeff says it's time to vote. She cannot do it after the votes have already been voted, like whenever right before Rizzo's about to stand up, she can't be like, "Hey, Rizzo, do you have an idol?" Right before
Right, which I think is fine, right? I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, you have to do it before anyone comes to vote. So again, in the MC case, she couldn't be like looking at MC. It's like, okay, is she gonna play it? Is she gonna play it? Let me ask her now. No, you have to do it before the votes are even.
Because then it'd be too overpowered, because presumably these things are supposed to be hidden. So if you're just watching people's pockets, then that kind of defeats the purpose.
Exactly right. So, but I knew the second that he says it here, he says, I'm exercising my block of vote on Savannah. He says it in the little confessional there. He's got the little parchment, whatever it is. So I knew the second that happened, in their loophole mind, that advantage has already been played. So now he no longer has an advantage. It's already been played, or it's already been used, I should say, because
it hadn't been enacted yet per se, but it had already been used.
Technically, it'd been used, but again, it's a little strange because I think the first time we saw something like this was in David versus Goliath, whenever there was a block and idol, which is way too overpowered, which has not been back. It's not been brought back since, but it was a block and idol, and it's like you have to play it before tribal. So it's still a knowledge is power thing. You have to play your block and idol before tribal, and if this person does play an idol, it's blocked or something like that. But this is very strange. I haven't seen anything like this really in a long time.
Like before we go on, they have to change this, right? I feel like this is the last time this will happen.
Yes, because normally if you steal somebody's vote, you do it right at tribal. You can't do it before tribal. Like Sarah in Game Changers was like when Jeff says it's time to vote, Sarah would stand up and say, "Hey, I am stealing Cerie's vote, or I'm stealing Ty's vote." That's what you do in a steal a vote situation. So why would it be different for a block a vote?
Why wouldn't they just call up Steven first, and then he can decide whether to use it or not? It feels like such an easy thing to do.
Well, you can do that too, but I'm saying what they used to do is they just try to say,
or what you said, by the way. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like another way to do this. There are multiple ways to do this where it's not exactly what we just watched.
Right, it's not public. But honestly, in the old times, they wanted it to be public because it was almost like a mirage. Like, I'm going to block this person's vote, but we're not actually going to throw any votes that way. They want to throw on the other person. So it was almost like it was good to make it public. We want everyone to know, hey, we're blocking.
I think it should be public too. No, I think that would be a little bit better.
Well, it ended up being public anyways because Rizzo ends up saying, hey, did you?
Right, exactly, yeah.
He ends up getting the information anyways, but yes, technically now they want it to be all secretive. It's like when you go up to vote, it'll say on the parchment, you're not allowed to vote, you've been blocked tonight. But why would you not just do it at tribal? Why would you have to have someone do it before they go to tribal? Like, what would change? Like, what if in a hypothetical scenario, he already blocked Savannah's, vote, and then at tribal something changes dramatically?
Mike, here's another one. Why can't, everyone goes up to vote, and then Steven plays his block a vote there, and then Savannah's vote just doesn't count. It's blocked. It can have like a red letter on it or something. Say this vote was blocked. Or you can have a dramatic moment blocked like that. And that's where I say the producer, fan, and game thing, that benefits everyone. That is way more exciting. That's more of a definitive moment for the cast as well. And the producers and fans, you get an amazing moment out of that. Oh my God, you get the red X is blocked. It can be like a thing. There's all these Survivor things that can be a new Survivor thing. And instead, we get this awkward moment on a technicality. And this entire time, I'm just losing my mind because I said, if she goes out on this, because the producers can't think a little ahead, she gets this amazing power and isn't able to enact it in kind of the spirit of the game. We talk about this all the time with sports, the spirit of the game. This was not in the spirit of the game. It just simply wasn't. So I was just incredibly annoyed. So this entire time, before this, I was like, okay, Steven's done because she's just gonna, take his block vote, and that's all she wrote.
I knew she could not take his block vote. I knew that, technicalities aside, because the Survivor players, you cannot use it on him.
So I didn't. I saw, at least while this episode was going on, and so I didn't look it up beforehand, which I assume you did here.
No,
so I was just looking up throughout the episode. I was looking at former players and stuff. No one seemed to know, which is kind of annoying enough. There was a lot of kind of back and forth, and it seems like you saw the same, but you saw some more trustworthy people than I did. No, I saw the same thing you did, where there were some assumptions, but I saw a lot of people assuming the opposite, actually. Again, some former players as well, where they're like, yeah, why wouldn't this count? Like, what?
So I agree, yeah.
At this point in time, after Soph gets denied, she's super embarrassed. It seems like this is going to be the end of Soph. and this is going to be a massive flame out, and kind of on her own doing because she didn't use it sooner when there was more primed opportunities,
Yeah,
but
she could've.
partly because this is just a production error. It just simply is. I don't know how else to say it. But then we read the votes, and this is where we lose our absolute
Can
minds.
we go to before that we read the votes though? Because
Sure.
I want to get to Rizzo for a second here because I really
Yeah,
thought
I was going
thought
to save that. Get to Rizzo.
I thought he really screwed this up, and I mean it worked out, but I thought he really screwed this up.
I thought he did too, and that's why
He-
I was saving it.
He goes up to the voting booth. So before we actually vote, he goes up to the voting booth. He says, "Okay, this just changes everything. Now it's going to be 3-2 on either me or Sophie. Who do I play? Now I have to play the idol." He's actually saying at the voting booth, "I have to now play my idol." And I'm like, "Yeah, you do. You really do. You have a 50-50 chance here because they have the advantage now. They have the numbers advantage." So I think he, in his mind, thought she was going to take his block of vote advantage, and of course, it got denied. It was a no. So now that changes their perspective on how they vote. So of course, Rizzo's going to the voting booth. He's saying, "Okay, what am I going to do? We're going to be at a 3-2 disadvantage numbers-wise because Savannah won't be able to vote or Sophie won't be able to vote, whatever."
And Mike, can I jump in here?
Please do.
And I thought when this was going on, I was like, they messed up again. And then, as Steven, Sage, and Christina, they telegraphed this way too much, where they gave Rizzo way too much time to just use his idol on Sophie. So that's where I thought this was going. And then what you were about to say is he goes up to Jeff and he's doing the dance again. I have this, and he says, "Sorry, girl." And then he goes back and he sits down.
But he doesn't.
He doesn't use it. No. And I thought this entire time he should have never used it on himself. I didn't think that made sense. I thought now you need the 3-2 advantage because, especially if you look at the other side, you pretty much have a 75% chance to win anything because Christina is not winning a damn thing unless it's a couch potato contest. So right now, if you have a 3-2 advantage, it might as well be a 3-1 strategic advantage in the game. So I thought this was a no-brainer. Obviously, you want to use an idol on yourself, but if you're able to use the idol on an ally, keep the advantage, it's another move in your resume.
Yeah. But what
It
do you
should
need
be
the idol?
a no-brainer.
Here's the thing. You don't need the idol at 5 if you have a 3-2 advantage. The idol only is necessary for him at 5.
Correct. 100% correct.
Down. So in this scenario, him not playing it, he was basically saying, "I'm okay going into Final 5 down 3-2 as long as I have the idol for myself in Final 5."
And I think part of it is the fact that he trusts Savannah to win these comps. I think in his mind, he thinks they have a good chance with him and Savannah, even though he hasn't proved it. I think he still has this self-confidence. And he was decent at comps early in the season. It's just gone off a cliff.
Individual ones, yeah.
Yeah, individual ones have not been his forte so far. So I think in his mind, he's like, yeah, one of us will beat these people. We're fine. And I have the idol, and that's that. So I thought it was a miscalculation until
My God.
we read the votes. And I want to say the producers did me dirty because Christina is talking smack and she writes down the S, and I swear she wrote down an O, and that was that. I kind of blacked out for a second. I was just like, oh my God, this is the end of Sophie. I was so mad I wasn't even paying attention. And so we get a split vote, and I'm like, okay, here comes the Sophie pours, and then we get a Steven. And I said, okay, well, that's expected.
It was going to be 2 on Steven anyways.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay. And then Jeff picks up the next parchment and says, the blah, blah, blah person voted out of Survivor 49, Steven. And I jumped out of my chair. I couldn't believe what I watched. And I want to give some insight here because before the vote, I texted you, I think we're underselling the drunk Sage flip. And what I meant by that was, I thought Rizzo's planting those seeds on Sage were really valuable beforehand. But the way everyone was talking, particularly Christina and Rizzo, when they were voting, I thought there was no chance of this. And so Steven goes out, but it wasn't even just a Sage flip because, as we could have assumed, but were confirmed after the episode, this was 4-1.
Unanimous, yeah.
Or 3-1, excuse me.
No, it was 4-1. It was 4-1.
Yes.
Only 5 votes were red, but after 3.
Yes, you're right. Sorry. Math is gone by the wayside
in
for me
this
today.
scenario, the block of vote means that even though there's 6 people, only 5 of them voted. So in this case, Savannah's not voting. So a majority would be 3. So 3, and that's enough because 3 out of 5 is, you're gone. So when the third Steven vote came out, that means the fourth one.
Yeah. So in totality, I should say this was 4-1. Not what we saw in the episode. So in totality, this was 4-1, which suggests, in my opinion, that Christina and Sage might have been on this the entire time. So let's start here before we get too deep into this. Don't go too deep. Let's just start here. Do you think, because I have no idea, do you think Rizzo and Sophie and Savannah knew what Sage and Christina just did?
I do not. I do not. Either they are great actors or no, they had no idea. Because Rizzo going out to the voting booth tells me that he was genuinely just blindsided. Why would he be recycling?
Yes.
Okay, I have to now reassess where the votes are going. Sophie says, "Hey, play it on me, play it on me." Why would that all be, a big facade?
And before you get deeper, I want to say this:
Well,
Rizzo is a self-described theater guy. He is a self-described actor.
Right, but why would you do that after the votes? There's no point in putting.
I don't know.
If you're Sophie, why would you be like, "Play it on me, dude"? If you already knew the votes were going to Steven, why in the world would you actually do that? There's no reason.
The only thing I could think of, the only thing is what we said earlier, and I saw some comments on our TikTok where people missed the point. When Rizzo didn't play his idol a few weeks ago, when he did that big charade, when Christina played hers and he didn't play his, and we talked about how brilliant that was, people were saying that he said afterwards that, yeah, it was just a show. But Rizzo said on multiple places, I think one might have been a pod he was on, and one was definitely on Twitter. He said the truth about that will come out after the season. You can't reveal right now the truth about that. And I've been inclined the entire time that was to gauge their reactions. Because if you watch him, and I watched it back, he's watching them the entire time. He's watching, like, Yellow Sophie and the rest of the people there. He's clearly trying to gauge their reaction. This time he did the same thing, for sure, but I'm not sure he did it in the same manner. Or last time he was really playing it up. He was talking for a long time. He was, if you notice, he's kind of walking, but looking at everyone. Yes, this time not as much, a little bit, not as much. So I wouldn't be inclined to agree with you. Now, we'll find out next episode, right? We'll truthfully find out. But it seems like he got saved here because I thought, if Rizzo makes this move by playing the idol on Sophie, there is no argument anymore who is running this game. This is a unanimous runaway train. If it turns out that he did know and he didn't play the idol, that is still true. But I feel like this is option C, where he just simply didn't know, made his first bad, in my opinion, miscalculation, and he kind of failed upward here.
Yeah, no, I think that regardless. Now, if he did know the whole time and he still didn't want to play it, that's fine too. I think it still would be a little bit worse than had he actually pulled off this 2-0. He idles Steven out of the game with Steven's block of vote, and he makes the biggest play of the game, and he gets the 3-2 numbers advantage. Right now, he still has the 3-2 numbers advantage, but that was another back-to-back unanimous vote. So once again, Sage and Christina vote right there with Sage and Christina vote with Rizzo and Savannah. They all vote together again. So it's funny at the start of the episode where she was like, "Yeah, we won't be able to work together again." Well, they just did. They all voted out Steven unanimously. So it was funny that happened. But I think with Rizzo's case, the idol play was so important at Final 6, not at Final 5. What's important at Final 5 is having the advantage.
Well, put a pin in that because I think you're missing something here. And I missed it, and I think I just got back to it, okay? Here we go. Just answer this question. Why did Sage and Christina flip on Steven?
They are horrible players. They accepted
but why did they think it was a good move?
Because Rizzo influenced them, 100%. He absolutely influenced them.
No. Beyond the context. I don't want the context. I want the actual answer, because there's an answer to this. Why did Christina and Sage flip on Steven? No, it's not a good. I'm not telling you it's a good answer. There is an answer.
Please. I don't know.
Want it?
I don't know. Please.
Ready? And I think I put this all together. Ready? Walk with me here.
God, it better not be for Jawan.
Walk with me here. In their minds, they think Rizzo has the idol. Savannah has the necklace. They're not going to vote each other. So to them, the vote is between Steven and Sophie.
Yeah.
In their minds, besides the number advantage, they think that Steven has more win equity than Sophie. So they'd rather take out Steven now and sacrifice the numbers and their loyalty and the protection of Steven being able to win a comp in order to get him out because he had more win equity. You agree with that, obviously, right?
Yes, that is so
it's a terrible answer, but it's the right answer based off what we saw in this episode.
No, I know it is because
now walk with me an extra step here. Ready? This is why the Rizzo move is fine. Are you ready? Because he was able to accomplish that. Okay. Now he keeps his idol an extra week or an extra week in the game, right? Conceptually here, they have the 3-2 numbers advantage. But don't you think that Christina and Sage, part of their calculations were the fact that Sophie was just talking about to them that she wants to make a big move. And don't you think that they might have been banking on the fact that Sophie was ready to flip on Rizzo or Savannah, and that if Rizzo didn't have his idol, one of them was a sitting duck, they'd finally be able to do it. And in their minds, and I'm not saying this is right, I'm just saying what they thought in their minds, they had a great chance in the finals, even though it's not really realistic. If it was one of the Rizzo and Savannah, they could try to get them out in the final four. And then the final,
no, nope,
you can't get here.
I'm gonna stop you right there because these are like 5 bridges too far for them. For Christina and Sage's game,
yeah, for them. But do you agree with this analysis? Because I think I'm on this.
It is a terrible, terrible idea.
No. Don't mistake this for me thinking this was a good move on their part. I'm just explaining what they think and why.
You're explaining
in the end.
Yes,
I'm explaining their terrible logic, and I'm explaining why somehow Rizzo was able to fail upward, even though we disagree with him not using it here. I think it actually kind of comes into play next week. I do.
Everything you just said about their thought process, you realize they're now screwed, right? Like they are totally screwed.
Well, that was all leading up to. They are now screwed. That was the finale of what I was about to say. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So well, here's my initial thing. Steven is in their alliance.
Yes.
Sophie is who they're trying to get to flip. She is the flip vote. She is with Rizzo and Savannah. So they need her to flip onto their side. Steven is already on their side. What do they do in this tribal council? They do what Juwan did, which got him voted out an episode later. They do what Yellow Sophie did, which is what got her voted out an episode later. They flip.
Can I tell you why?
Well, real quick.
I think
they were getting revenge for the flippers. They wanted their revenge for the flipper.
Yes.
Yellow Sophie.
Yes.
They then turn into the flippers. You see, Juwan on the tribal says in the jury says, "Wow, they flipped on Steven."
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But here's the thing. I think, again, the other layer to what I said, my theory, which I think is spot on and I could see you agreeing with. I think the other layer to this is, in their minds, the final four, if it was them three, and you can dealer's choice, the other one, okay? They thought Steven was the runaway winner. You want to know why Steven was the runaway winner? Because he was the best player. He was the only one actually playing and trying of those three. And was Steven a great player? No, but I think he was solid. He tried, he cared, he was a good competitor. And I think the entire time, if he had more competent allies, which it wasn't his fault, he was kind of dealt with these people, right? If he had more competent allies, I think he could have actually potentially been a winner candidate. I really do. I think he was a solid above average player.
Real quick on Steven.
Yeah.
I just want to say Steven's vote out tonight was not of the fault of his own. I think, unfortunately,
he got hosed.
He is working with, no disrespect, total morons that do not know what they're doing. Absolute morons who keep saying they want to get Savannah and Rizzo out, yet keep handing them $1 million with each vote out. Each week, it gets more and more Looney Tunes with what these people are doing. Christina and Sage specifically, I'm going to put them as a duo in tandem. They're both. I cannot believe, genuinely, and I'm upset for Stevens, even though he's on your team, but I'm upset for Steven, who actually, by a technicality, should have won this. He should have won this round of this week of Tribal Council over Blue Sophie by a technicality, but he gets screwed because his own incompetent alliance turns on him at this point. They eat their own again. So now Sage, who has, in her bottoms-up alliance with Juwan and Steven, she's been blindsided by the Juwan vote out, gets revenge on the people who flipped on Juwan, then flips on her last remaining alliance member. This is like total meltdown. I mean, have you seen a Survivor player completely? It's like a plane crash. I can't stop. I have to look at it, but I'm like,
well, two things here. One, I don't think it's dawned on Sage and Christina yet that they have no chance, and everything they are doing is benefiting everyone else. I think they are grasping for the idea of this big move, and we talked about this way earlier in the season. I'm talking like weeks 2 or 3. We talked about big move-itis. And everyone gets in their head that they have to make a big move. And I think that's where Sage and Christina have been at the last few weeks, because they presumably think they can somehow win this. Again, that could be just your own self-ego talking, but they have none. Regardless, they think they can win this, so they are just doing whatever they can for shock value, it feels like, to make these moves, even though the moves are orchestrated primarily by Rizzo and benefits Rizzo, Sophie, and Savannah. Here's the second thing, Mike. You ready for this?
I don't even know if I am. I hope I am.
I want to present to you the Christina Wote case, the worst of all time. I want to present it to you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. The entire time, she was in a dominant alliance, dominant alliance that was not losing early in the season, a tribe that was just flying. seemed like she was annoying everyone just a little bit. She had allies, but it seemed like she was wearing just a teeny tiny bit thin at times. Okay? The first second she moves on and they do the tribe swap, the first second that happens, she butts heads with Yellow Sophie. So that's another issue, okay? Sure. Then we get to the merge. There is a group idol hunt. She finds it. It actually benefits her. She would have never found it on her own, but that's irrelevant. She gets the idol. And then she wastes said idol in dramatic fashion, getting pantsed, if you will, by Rizzo. She has no chance.
She uses it on Steven.
Of doing anything. And then, she's the catalyst of a major majority alliance at the merge. And throughout this entire time, has not been able to manage anything. She's been on the wrong side of nearly every important vote that has affected her directly, that is, okay? And then, when she finally can gather some power, what does she do? She votes out her day one! What are you doing? Why would you do that?
Used her idol on Steven 2 episodes ago.
Yes!
And now
she voted him out! Why?
Why would you do that? She's got no other number one. Who is she going to go to now? Sage?
What are you doing? You're done. You can't win. You literally made the point of why it was dumb to get out Steven, and then you somehow don't even realize
it. She shut it down immediately. I said, wow, good point by her. She's like, I'm not going to vote my number one. What are you, stupid? She is... No, I don't think you even have to make a case. The case I already was pushing for.
The worst of all time. It's over.
If you were to do a redraft...
She's on the short list.
Well, here's the thing, X. If we were to do a redraft, I would take Sage over Christina. I can't believe I'm saying that,
she'd be my UDFA, and Mike, part of this is a little personal, because I've been complaining about Christina and Sage for weeks, but we both made the case. Sage is bad, but we can at least put in the caveat that she's actively trying to do something. She is trying. Is it bad? Sure. But she's actively trying. She's made a few moves. She's had a few good reads. She's at least clocked the entire time that Savannah needs to go. Has she done really anything about that? No.
A lot,
but at least that analysis has been a constant, and that's fine. Whereas Christina, I feel like we haven't even talked about how bad Christina is enough. And I haven't even mentioned the Uncle Jeff stuff. I'm leaving that alone.
Yeah,
it's just... From top to bottom, she is totally inept. And she probably, we're talking about people giving people $1 million. She just gave Rizzo or Savannah or Sophie, probably the former two, one of them, $1 million. That was $1 million donation, what she did tonight.
When you texted me that don't overlook the drunk Sage flip, I would be like, yeah, that could happen. But when I saw that it was 3-1, when I saw the third vote as Steven, I knew immediately Christina also flipped on him, which means Christina is the vote. I thought it'd be 2-2, and then the third vote, who knows what Sage does.
And Mike, I couldn't even analyze it because I was so stunned that Steven went home. I couldn't even get there.
You didn't clock that Christina also voted on him?
No, I couldn't. I was too I was too lost at what just happened. I was kind of running everything. I wasn't even there yet. But once I saw the preview and then the final recap of the episode, and I saw that she voted Steven, my jaw hit the floor. I couldn't believe it because at least Sage.
You're loose cannon. You never know.
She could make an argument that if she got late in the game, and let's say somehow, again, this would never happen, but somehow if the final three was Sage, Christina, and Sophie, right? If that's your final three, Sage could say in a way, she influenced a big Nate vote and she influenced a big Steven vote. And even though we disagree with pretty much everything she did, at least that is a formulation of a case, okay? That is at least something. Now, was she aligned with Steven? Yeah, we'll ignore all of that. I am literally playing into this. Yes, I am playing into this as much as I possibly can, right? What is Christina's argument here? She has nothing. There is no foresight. There's no hindsight. She can't say anything. She voted out her number one for presumably no reason because she thinks in some twisted way that, again, I presume this was all done with the notion that Sophie's gonna flip. I presume that has to be. That's the only way that this would get done, is that they think whether Sophie made a promise that we'll see next episode, or they just assume it because of what was said earlier in this episode that Sophie's gonna flip.
They think that she's gonna flip on next round, final five. So they didn't have her tonight. So they were gonna save her tonight.
Well, Mike, because think about it, right? So Sophie could have done something here that would have been smart, and who knows if it actually happened or not. But Sophie could say, well, I can't flip because, Rizzo has a title. and Savannah
No,
has
no,
the
no.
necklace, so I can't
You get it
flip.
on the
I'll flip
opposite.
next time.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, no. But if she really was going to flip, because remember, Rizzo tells them that the idol does not expire at 6. It expires at 5. So
Yes.
Sophie knows that he's not going to play it tonight. He's going to use it for Final 5. So she
No,
could
I'm saying she could pull that facade. I'm not saying it's real,
right.
but you would presume that.
But she's not going to flip. If she was going to, it would have been
Yes,
tonight.
yes. You would think she would flip a little bit sooner.
Like right
That
now.
some way she would convince Rizzo not to use the idol. She could have sold it or something of the matter to really get Sage and Christina's trust. Whether it's blind trust, whether it's assuming, I don't know. It's impossible to tell. Regardless, there is not a single explanation that warrants this.
No, Sage and Christina have locked up 4th and 5th place as far as I'm concerned, unless they want to drag a goat to the final 3, which does happen occasionally. So if one of them survives the final 5, which of course
It'd be Christina of the two, I'd presume.
So but here's the thing: guaranteed, one of them will survive to the final 4, and in the final 4, you almost want to bring whoever is that. So you almost want to bring Sage or bring Christina to the final 3 with you. Like you want to make the other two do fire in this scenario. You get what I'm saying? Like, so one of them has locked up 5th place, the other one has locked up 3rd place. You could have been in the final 3 if you just went with Steven's plan. Like Steven unceremoniously got voted out by his own alliance's stupidity. Had they just went with his plan, by a technicality, they would have been into the 3-2 numbers advantage. It would have been Christina, Sage, and Steven in a 3-2 advantage heading into the finale next week, and we would have been saying, "Wow, Rizzo and Savannah, how are they gonna get out of this one?" I don't know.
And in our minds, Steven would be the runaway favorite there. But I wouldn't put it past this jury to have some sympathy for Sage. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't. It's at least in play.
We agree that they would be in a much, much better spot had they just voted out Sophie. Now, they would have had Steven still in their an alliance member. They don't have to flip Steven. He's an alliance member of theirs right now. Does he have win equity? Sure, but you have final 5 to get him out, and you have final 4 to get him out, and you still have Rizzo and Savannah in the game. Right now, you still have Rizzo and Savannah in the game, yet you have one less challenge competitor to beat either one of them. Like Sage and Christina aren't going to beat them in anything. What is Christina going to beat anybody in? Christina needs Steven in the game for her own game. She needs Christina in the game, which Christina's best path to win the game, which really, of course, there is 0% now, but there was anyways. But if you're Christina, if I was in Christina's shoes, I would be like, okay, Steven is my shield. I know I can't win anything anyways, but can I get the final 4 with Steven? And then because Steven's such a huge threat, would they throw him into fire? Would he lose? And then I'm the remaining one that everyone loves in the jury. If it was Steven and Christina that the jury loves.
Yeah, I think Sage has sympathy, but Christina has a lot of friends as well. She has a lot of people from her original tribe. There were a lot of people that were in her alliance. There's a lot of people that trusted her.
Right, but Steven, in this case, if she brings Steven to Final 4, and in this case, he brings her to Final 4, she guarantees whether Steven goes home at Final 4, he's not mad at her. He's voting for her. She has friends in the jury. Now she just turned on Steven, who was her number 1. MC probably doesn't like her anymore. She's like, why would you put out Steven? So all of her friends at this point on the jury are probably like, what in the world is she doing? What she is doing is playing Rizzo and Savannah's game right now like a fiddle. I mean, she's just handing them checks. I mean, literally handing them checks. Why would you put out? It'd be like if we were on the island together and we're in an alliance, and I'm like, I should vote out X. He's going to beat me in the final 3. Why would I do that right now? It makes no sense. We are actually for the rare time in the numbers advantage. We can finally get out. We want to vote. We want to vote out. We can take him out of the knees. We can vote out Blue Sophie, who I keep calling Blue Sophie for no reason, and we don't do it. Why? Why would we? Why? It doesn't make any sense. I cannot believe the logic. It's terrible logic. For whatever you get to, and we'll find out next week is the finale. Whatever they say as their reasoning for voting out Steven will be recycled words of what Rizzo told them.
Cirie should sue, because if you remember earlier in this season, Christina compared herself to Cirie. If I'm Cirie, I'm suing. I'm getting a defamation lawsuit.
This is aging like mud. I mean, this is aging. Boy, oh boy, that's aging like rotten.
Can we shift gears to the other side now, though? Because I think, again, we don't know how this played out. So I don't want to get too lost here.
Right.
But in one way or another, whether it was super intentional, whether it was kind of intentional, regardless, Rizzo did influence this vote. Rizzo is the one who clearly, based off the edit, now who knows if it's actually like that, but we're going off what we see. Based off the edit, he's the one who planted the seed in Sage and thus Christina and got them soured on Steven and got him voted out. And this is, I'm losing track of how many votes Rizzo is directly or somewhat indirectly influencing. I want to go back to that immunity point, and I was saying this watching the episode, and there's a lot of layers here that will divulge. To me, right now, even with Savannah's third immunity, I think it's really hard if you know what's going on, if they have the luxury of watching the show, which they don't, so I want to preface that. If you're a fan at home, I don't know how you wouldn't vote for Rizzo to win this game. I think he is influencing significantly more than Savannah is as far as votes are concerned. I think for whatever reason, the fact that they are linked, you would think would matter a lot more, but somehow Savannah's the evil one and Rizzo's the one that they kind of are able to confide in, which has never made sense throughout the season, but that's how it's gone. And Rizzo, time and time again, has used his idol in magnificent fashion. He's lied, he's cheated, he's stealing a whole bit, where he's been able to skate by numerous times when either him or Savannah have been vulnerable. One of them has been able to get voted out, and he's just played this up. So, us watching at home, I think Rizzo is a clear favorite, but for some reason on the island, there is a disconnect where Savannah is the mastermind. I think they think she's puppeteering Rizzo, which is not the case, but I think they think she's puppeteering Rizzo, using Rizzo to do all her dirty work, and then has the 3 immunity necklaces. So it feels like on the island, Savannah's the big threat, and Rizzo's lagging behind. What do you think about this disconnect from us as viewers and them on the island? Because this is not unusual, but in recent memory, I feel like I can't remember a time where there's been such a big disconnect. This is a really monumental disconnect. I feel like no one really has given Rizzo his flowers when we are just on here every week doing so.
No, he absolutely. First of all, I still would vote for Savannah today. I just want to throw that out there. I still would vote for Savannah, but I think Rizzo's
It's close
right there.
though, right? You could vote for either. We're admitting it, both on the island and here. You could go either way.
100%. If it was strictly an outwit portion of the game, Rizzo is dominating the outwit portion of the game. Like, he is running. As a matter of fact, he's running laps around everyone in the outwit portion of the game. Outplay. He certainly could be better at the challenges, no doubt about that. But as far as his strategic sense, and I think even his social, I think he's a good strategic and social player. I mean, he's really following. It's like if Russell Hantz was a good social player, which he's obviously a terrible social player. But like in that season, he was kind of the one puppeteering. But in Heroes versus Villains, it was Parvati winning all the immunity challenges, Russell influencing all the votes. Of course, Russell got 0 votes in the final. But nonetheless, I think he's playing a fantastic game. He just is. He's linked to the hip of someone who is perceived on the island as a huge strategic threat, and now has won 3 immunity challenges. So as far as their perception is, it's probably growing of Savannah each week. Even though Rizzo's the one influencing getting things done, what he wants to get done, and obviously what his alliance wants to get done, it's Savannah who they perceive as the one who's making him do this, and he's the one that's kind of following her orders, and she's winning immunities. So whether right or wrong, they probably, in their mind, view whoever has the necklace is calling the shots. And Rizzo, while he has an idol, and it's a very powerful idol, he's probably just doing what's in the best interest of whoever has the necklace. Because even in the vote out of Jawan, I don't think Rizzo wanted to vote out Jawan. I think that Yellow Sophie wanted to vote out Jawan.
Can I take this a step further, though? I want to take this a step further.
Right, but Rizzo wanted Sage out. He did not want to vote Jawan out.
They're not aware of what Rizzo's doing is the problem. Because he's doing it so subtly, he's almost acting like it's their idea, which is kind of the brilliance of all of this. And to a point, I agree with you, but I do think he did eventually want Jawan out. I think he saw Jawan as a threat to him. They were kind of similar players to, in an extent, Rizzo did a better job than Jawan, but I think he wanted everyone out eventually, and part of the order was the person with the necklace. I'm not discounting that at all.
Yeah,
but I still think
you agree you wanted Sage out. I mean, we brought up the women, the men and women disparity. It's like, hey,
the dynamic, yes,
right. Like I think he's closer to Jawan socially than he was to Sage.
100%.
And I think if it was up to him, he would. I think it would be a wrong move. And if I was just to grade him strategically, if I said if it was Rizzo's decision, and it was his choice to vote out Jawan or Sage, and he voted out Jawan, I would say that's kind of a bad move on his part.
But you want to know why I don't think that? And I think you'll agree with this. If you start veering off the path of other people's best interests as well, then you get labeled as selfish and cut out at the knees. You
100%.
have to do the thing where you're like, if I control, let's say, 4 of 6 votes, I have to kind of forego these other 2 to make these other people happy as well. I think that was the Jawan vote to him.
Well, that's why when we predicted who's going to go next, I said Jawan, I believe, would be next on the hit list because Rizzo's controlled 3 straight votes.
Yes, you did bring that up, yeah.
Whether you agree or not, he should, as a good player, take a backseat to whoever the next target is because he's like, hey, I got out Alex, I got out MC, and those were my moves, and I dictated all of them. So in this case, if it's between Jawan and Sage and we're splitting hairs, even though for my game, probably Sage would be voted out because I'm closer to Jawan. I think Sage is more scary to me. I do agree that taking a backseat position to 1 vote when you've controlled them is smart. It's smart strategy.
Yes.
And again, Yellow Sophie had the immunity necklace at that time, so she kind of was able to call the shots, sit down, and be like, here's who I really want to get down, and it was Jawan. So in her mind, of course, she's making the vote, but in Rizzo's case, he's like, doesn't matter if it's Sage or Jawan, I'm getting my way anyways. They flipped on me twice. So I don't disagree. I'm saying in this scenario, he is outwitting everyone on the island, 100%.
Yeah, easily.
But in their mind, and again, we know this, perception is everything in this game because the jury doesn't get to watch it for 6 months and then vote. They have to vote it on the island. So as they are currently sitting, they're not the audience. They don't get to see it all at home like we do. They're voting, and in their minds, Savannah's the mastermind strategically, and we know for a fact that she's the better individual competitor in these challenges. She's winning the rewards, she's winning the immunities now. So whether you agree or disagree, Rizzo at this point, if his final 3 involves Savannah in it, I believe that would be a risky.
It'd be detrimental, yeah.
Detrimental for his game. I think that would be a bad way to position yourself in the final 3. If your final 3,
he could win still if he's able to articulate his moves, but without video evidence and without testimonial, which I guess is part of the flaw of this, right? But I'll bring this up too. So there's been 48 seasons completed, and granted, I haven't seen them all. I've watched a ton recently. Of the 48 seasons, I would guess there's less than like 5 or 6 where watching it back at home would dramatically change the outcome. I feel like most of the time, I'm not saying all the time, I'm not saying that, I'm saying most of the time they do get it right, and it's pretty definitive who gets it right. There's always, it's just like anything else, there's always the off cases, right? But I do think this is one of the off cases where if they were able to watch it at home, Savannah still might win, and that I'm admitting that. I think at least it'd be far more of a discussion than what it is right now with what they know on the island.
No, I agree. I've rewatched, I believe, 17 through 30 in like the last year, which is I don't even know how. But when I've rewatched those, I have a few times come across where I'm like, wow, I'm actually surprised that he won and not the other person. Like I'm a little bit surprised that they've off a rewatch. And I know, I mean, I've watched most of these live, so I can say they got it right at the moment. But then I rewatched and I'm like, now that I really can look each week and be like, that really wasn't.
Yeah, that's a little tough on a rewatch too, because you kind of come in with a preconceived notion and you're picking up on even more now.
Exactly right.
And sometimes you have context that people were on another season, so then you're like, oh, they're doing this. Maybe you don't have that context originally. So I get what you're saying.
No, and I was doing this because I had my winner rankings that I did a few months back, and I was like, okay, how dominant really was that person's winning season? And I go back and watch it, and I was like, man, that person really wasn't that. What I was told was not really what I just watched on a rewatch. And then on the vice versa for other cases, sometimes I'd rewatch a winner season, and everyone said, oh, it's a terrible winner. How did they win? And I would go back and watch, and I'd be like, they completely deserved to win. Their end game was much better than somebody else's was. And that happens sometimes with rewatches. But I think in this particular one, obviously the finale is next week, so we don't know what's going to happen. But
no.
I mean, I know what's going to happen. But next week's finale is the people on the island have no idea who's going to win right now. We are final 5. And as of this moment, if we were ranking them not knowing what's going on, I do think it would be Savannah, Rizzo, slight under, and then I think Blue Sophie would have been in that conversation had her knowledge power worked. Because it backfired, I don't really. Can she win the game now? Like what's the move now?
If she's able to explain that. She's able to explain it was a technicality and that he did play an advantage. Maybe you garner a little bit of sympathy, but here's the thing, and I don't know how logical these jurors are going to be, because sometimes they're just not, right? Yeah, and sometimes they get up there, and especially earlier seasons, they're just like, I hate you, bye, and they just sit back down. But
1 in 10.
I'm going to, try to presume that this jury is going to be fair here and ask valid questions and whatnot and analyze this properly. If someone is looking at this logically, they can easily say, yeah, it was a technicality, you got screwed, but you had 3 other probably better chances to use it, and you didn't for presumably no reason. You could argue you didn't want to ruffle Rizzo's feathers. That's fine. You still could have used it on MC or Christina, and you would have been fine, and that probably would have advanced your standing in the game. Maybe that makes it a little scary at the end. I don't know. But regardless, it's almost better if she didn't play it and did the need to play this. Why did I need to play this? My guy had the idol. Why would I take it from him? He was my shield. He was there all along. And if someone else had it, I had this as a backup. She could have did that. So I think it's almost better if she just didn't use it at all, kind of did the show and tell thing that some people do. I think her win equity plummeted. To be honest, right now, this is a 2-horse race in my mind.
I thought it would be a 3-horse, but I think after today, I think it's...
Yeah, I thought people were discounting Sophie's win equity. I really do. I thought she had a pretty good chance because if you take into account how terrible the beginning of her game was and how little of it was her fault, where the initial episode, they just vomit on the puzzle, and they seemingly can't do puzzles the entire season, whether it's a table maze puzzle or like an actual like build a puzzle. They're just vomiting all over the place. Her number 1 ally gets bitten by a sea snake, which is like, what are the chances of that?
Very
And
unlucky.
then she somehow is able to survive the final three with a known idol in play, where she would have never been under pressure, but she
You
was
have a
because
case.
of yeah,
Yeah,
she
yeah,
was
yeah.
because of the circumstances. She's able to survive that with Jeremiah. She comes in as the underdog and is able to kind of warm up herself to the Red Tribe, whose name I'm forgetting right now because we're so
Uli.
deep in this game.
Yeah,
Uli, yeah,
Uli.
she's able to kind of cuddle up to Rizgod and Savannah there and kind of build a connection there. When they could have easily picked her off, they didn't. They left her around. They built a relationship there. Then at the merge, she had a chance to flip to Alex. She didn't. She stayed pat. She stayed in the, well,
Stayed
we
up.
were calling the majority three, if you will, because they were dominating the whole time. So the path was there. She had a great explanation. Would she have won? I don't know, but I think she really had a chance. And I think, especially with Modern Survivor, they love underdog stories. And let's just call a spade a spade. People have been burned by Savannah, and I think people are a little tired of Rizzo's antics, just a teeny tiny bit. So I think she's kind of the hipster choice. And if you think perhaps she could have won based off just Rizzo and Savannah splitting votes, and then she kind of sneaks through on the other side. We talk about that a lot. It doesn't really happen, but this is the year it could have happened, and this just
Yeah.
derails it.
No, I think just to put this slightly. By the way, all those points can still be made at Tribal Council for her at the final. If she doesn't get
True,
final
I
three,
think
she
it's
can,
way harder
she can
now when
still
you have
say
that stain on your resume.
she can still say that I played the underdog role. Her
Yeah.
social standing in this game has been incredible. She's been the best social player of this game. I think, to put it lightly, she's been like the tie of the Jalapal 3. When it was Ty, it was Steven Fishback, and then it was JT. JT winning all the immunity challenges, Steven being the the brains of the operation, but Ty was really the one who was the social butterfly and really made that 3 survive the post merge sort part of the game. So I think she would still have a case, even if she was sitting in a final 3 with Savannah and Rizzo. I think she could still plead a legitimate case as to why she could get some legit votes. Now it's much more difficult with one episode to go. I don't know what you could do in Final 5 and Final 4. You'd have to have a flawless end game to pull it off. But I really don't know what avenues. I mean, unless she's sitting in the Final 3 with like Christina and Sage, which is almost
Yeah,
impossible
that's
now.
it. That's it.
Because,
That's her only path.
but how could it even happen? Rizzo is safe. He's going to play his idol at Final 5. There is no after. There's no more votes after this. So he's going to be safe. He's going to make the Final 4. We can safely
It
assume that
would
Rizzo
need
won't.
to be Rizzo plays his idol, and one of the three we don't think can win anything wins
Win
an immunity
something.
necklace, which I was just talking about. Some of these are crapshoots, so perhaps it's just
Maybe.
lucky
Hey,
and it happens.
and
But
maybe the next one's a puzzle, and obviously Steven's out now, so maybe I don't know. There's a
yeah,
world. There's a world.
there is a path, but even then, I don't see it. It's just so in their favor, and I really do think she's so bought into them being the final three that she
Yeah.
wouldn't do it regardless.
I agree. I think she's going to stick with them to the Final 3. I think at this point in time, Christina and Sage are sitting ducks.
And to be honest, if it's Savannah or Rizzo, so one of those two, and then if it's one of the Sage or Christina's, and it's Sophie, right? I don't think there's a chance in the world. I think the first person, the Rizzo or Savannah, would win. I think she has to go with one of the duos and kind of be the alternative. Like I mentioned, they split votes and enough people just sympathize with her and she makes it through. But at this point, again, because of this stain, she can make all those points. But this is such a big stain that the others can kind of manipulate. And to be honest, this perception is reality. Was Sophie kind of clinging to Rizzo and Savannah rather than Rizzo and Savannah clinging to Sophie? She needed them probably more than they needed her. They just needed a third for Sophie really needed to be them. She needed to be with enough conniving and creative people to keep Sophie around, keep her threat level down, and
That's
and
why
that's
I
where
would
we're
say.
at.
That's why I would say if with Rizzo not playing his idol for her tonight, knowing what we know now, and I do believe that Rizzo did not know how the votes would be unanimous tonight. I'm a
agree.
big believer that I think that he actually assumed that Blue Sophie's going to go home tonight 3-2. And sorry, I needed this for myself in Final 5. We can get through without you. That would even, if he used the idol on her tonight, I would be like, Sophie is such a good social player that he believed that he needed her so badly as a number in Final 6 to play an idol on her so that he had the 3-2 advantage in Final 5. I would believe that would have been a good move for her as well. But because he didn't use it on her, I'm like, man, does he really need her? I mean, he in his own mind, it's him and Savannah, and it's like, oh yeah, we have a third here too. But he wasn't willing to risk the idol.
Can
on
I
her.
make a point?
But here's the thing.
I think it shows that it's just him, Mike. I think it shows it's just him. Because if he saved Sophie, then that's 3-2, and no matter what happens, they're fine. But if they went down 3-2, if they went down 3-2 and Savannah didn't win the necklace, then only Rizzo's safe and he kind of just kicked his ladies to the curb. So I think it's even worse than you're presuming. It really shows he's only about himself.
Yeah, it does, actually. That's a good point. It actually is all about himself. Yeah, no, that's true. But I was thinking along the lines of, if he's a great strategic player and he's good with numbers, he would value how important a final six, how important this vote is. This is whoever wins this 3-3 color war, not even a color war at this point, but at this point it is 3 versus 3. Whoever gets their way in this vote will dictate the rest of this game. It went to the part of it was a unanimous vote, which none of us thought. I don't think anyone was, when the tribal said, yeah, it'll be a unanimous vote. Christina and Sage will both block Steven. I think we both believed it would be 3-2 something because of the block a vote. So it would be 3-2 whether it was, regardless, whether Sophie stole it from him and blocked somebody else's vote, or whether he blocked Savannah's vote and he got his way and they went up 3-2. I don't think either of us imagined a unanimous vote. But because Rizzo is a good enough player to acknowledge that the numbers are not in their side right now, I figured he would use the idol on somebody, and he didn't. And that tells me that either A, Blue Sophie's not as good a social player as I thought because she couldn't convince him to use the idol on her, or B, he is just thinking about himself and he does not care about the numbers as much as I thought he did. Because if you're down 3-2 heading into 5, but you still have your idol, you're in a much, much worse position to win the game than you are up 3-2 with no idol. Like, that's undisputed facts. If you have a 3-2 numbers advantage with no, then the idol here is not as important in Final 5 unless you are actually down in the numbers, which he would not have been had he played it correctly tonight.
I think it's a selfish play that he thought he'd have a great chance just to make the finale, whether it was winning, being brought, or winning fire. There's plenty of avenues to make the finale. And I think he thought if he just got there, he would win the game. And if Savannah and Sophie were out, so be it. He made it. He did what he had to do, and that's that. I think it was a selfish move, but I don't think it helps his case, though. I agree with you completely. I think the right move, again, we don't know. It's really tough to analyze this part of it, this angle, because we just don't know.
We don't know the full truth, right? But we can objectively say that regardless, he now has the numbers advantage and he has his idol. So it worked out. How he got it
worked out better than he could have ever imagined.
Yes, but now the way he got to it was a little weird, but it did work out, and we don't know the whole edit. But we don't know what conversations, because when we went to tribal council, we did not know that Christina and Sage had flipped. So maybe there was something that was not in the edit that got lost in the shuffle. Of course, we saw Rizzo's planting seeds, but we did not see them fully shift his, like, okay, we got to get Steven out. We saw Christina shut it down completely and then go to Steven and word vomit, but we never once saw them completely flip. So something happened that was not shown in the edit before tribal council, definitely not during tribal council, that convinced Christina and Sage to flip on Steven.
And it probably goes beyond those Rizzo comments from earlier. Maybe they bring it up. Maybe it's a conversation and they talk about those comments. But it feels like, to me, just watching this show, this feels like the rare case where they kind of go backwards a little bit. This is more of a Big Brother trope. Survivor does it once in a blue moon. If they don't, I'm going to be super confused because I don't think we're getting the full picture, and that'll be very annoying.
Well, hypothetically, let's just say here, what did not make the edit was Sage and Christina going back and forth on what to do. They just feel like it's better for their game to vote out Steven. In my mind, if that was the case, truly, Rizzo had no idea that they had flipped. I think he got very, very bailed out by two very bad players, making a
unbelievably,
decision on their part, which benefited him, which he did not know about. Like, if he knew about the whole thing and orchestrated the whole thing, then of course it's a great job. But if he genuinely, and I do believe that they were both, all three of them were surprised, because why would you be asking who did he block your vote on? If you had the votes anyways, you wouldn't be asking all these questions. You would not be trying to get all the information.
The only reason you would is for the bit, and
for the whole playing of the story. Right.
Most people, I wouldn't suggest are doing it for the bit. Rizzo, I have to at least entertain that he's doing it for the bit. We have to. He's a showman.
But if all three of them were in on it and all three of them knew, wouldn't that be a little bit suspicious? Why they all three played up to it so much? Like, if they all knew that it was going to be a unanimous vote.
Yeah, I suppose it was to keep Steven content, but I don't know why you would do that. I guess so he doesn't play shot in the dark. I don't know.
Yeah, if all the votes are going to Steven, there's really no reason to kind of, completely leave him in the dark. Like, hey, all the votes are going your way. We're going to play this up so much to convince Steven.
Unless it was kind of playing it up for the idol reaction. The idol is still fine reaction, where the jury mixed reaction. Seemed like some people loved it. MC was very upset by this. I think this is hilarious. I think it's so funny that he's used this idol like 5 times now, and no one's called him out on it. No one has tried to call his bluff. They're just letting him do it. And as I started the show off with, the analysis of him not being strong enough to go after with the idol is just so wrong. They want him out. It's evident. They want him and Savannah out. They just are too scared or too inept to do it. That's it.
Yeah, regardless of how it is, maybe I'm wrong next week. We'll find out. I do not believe that he and Savannah were so sure that they had Christina and Sage. So positive they had
Agreed.
them. Because the only reason why you do the whole show thing is if you truly believe that you have all the numbers there. You don't have to even worry.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that they were so confident that Sage and Christina had flipped to their side. And that's why, in my
They
opinion,
couldn't have been based off what? Even
Based
if
off what-
they said
yeah.
beforehand that they were 100% flipping, how could you possibly trust them?
really couldn't trust them. I mean, Christina and Sage have been. I mean, they're not good players. So if they were, again, I don't know. There's no way you can trust two kind of loose cannons at this point. Like, let's be real here. Even if I was working with Christina and Sage, I'd be like, I don't even know if I believe what they're saying because they're not really.
Well, Steven didn't, and he got voted out because
he
of
was
it.
very
He
hurt by it. You
clocked
could
it
tell.
immediately. Yeah, oh, he was hurt.
He was walking by. He's like, wow, guys. And then Sage is like, I don't even know what just happened. It's like, well, you voted against him. So, I mean,
This
clearly
is
you know
the
what
rare moment where I think the person placed too low. I don't say this often at
Yeah.
all. I think most of the time you lack in some area and that's why you're out. I don't know what Steven could have done differently. He's been
No.
so nice to these people. He has carried them to this part of the game. Even when he could have flipped or should have flipped or done something different, he stuck by them. It looked like it was finally going to pay dividends.
had
And the
it.
second he has the fruits of his labor, it gets ripped out from him. And it's just stupid.
He earned the block vote on the journey, and whether the technicality or not, you can argue it till the cows come home. But he got burned by his own alliance and their bad logic, and that is unfortunate because both of them would have been gone 3 tribals ago had it not been for Steven. So I do feel a little bit bad for him in this scenario because I don't think he could. What could he have done differently? I mean, literally, he won in this scenario. He actually gets benefited because of the technicality. He used it before tribal, and by the rules, it can't be stolen at that point. So he didn't give it to anybody. He didn't.
But even at least with the technicality, even Steven knew immediately, which I was happy with. He was smiling, so
yeah, he knew that it wasn't going to.
He didn't know about a knowledge is power, but he knew it was ironclad beforehand.
Right, but it's just it was. I felt bad because he got away with that scot-free, and then his alliance lets him down.
Final words on Steven, Mike. At least he fits into so many Survivor demographics. He could be on like a nerd / geek / brain season. He could be a hero. He could be a fan favorite. He fits into so many buckets that hopefully he comes back. I think he deserves to come back. I thought he was fun.
Yeah.
I thought he tried really hard. I thought he had a good spirit. He's one of the few people that was a fan, and it seemed like for a moment early in the game, it was getting to him, the fandom, like he was pre-planning too much. But as soon as that wore off, he was a legit good player, trying to play the entire time. He just happened to work with a ton of incompetent people.
I want to say one thing on Steven here. Rest in peace to him, obviously, in this game. He's obviously no longer. But I want to see him on a cast of not totally inept people. I think that, and he was, in my opinion, the steal of the draft. And when we did our draft after one episode, I think that getting him where you got him. I just want to say another thing because your last remaining HENA member, I'm honestly insulted that she's still here. She's the last remaining OG.
Yeah, me too.
So I thought MC was a pretty good steal. I thought me getting Yellow Sophie was a pretty good steal, even though she's had a couple episodes. Steven was the steal of the draft, and yet all 3 of them have been picked off before our last remaining OG HENA member, which is Christina, who's watched them all get picked off and actually had a hand in a couple of them.
It's kind of unbelievable. Back in our 4th episode, if you told us that she'd be the last of her tribe, we would have thought you were insane.
They weren't.
Or she was Suri. One of the two. One of the two happened. She was Suri, or you are literally off the deep end, and somehow neither are
Neither
true.
of those.
No, it just happened that she's kind of goaded her way throughout, and part of her incompetence is the reason why all of her tribe members have left one by one.
Yeah, no, literally. That tribe was not losing. Jason and Matt, you could argue, got screwed on the tribe swap, but
yeah, they did.
The other 4 were in a good spot at the merge, and after the Nate vote out, they were even in an even better spot, and somehow they've been picked off one by one, by and large because of Christina's incompetence. Like, let's call it as. She, being a sloppy bad player, has led to the demise of HENA, as we know it.
Yeah.
I feel
Any
bad for
final words entering the finale before we wrap up here?
I feel bad for Steven. Finale, I'm excited because it feels like we are in a 2-horse race, and I want to see who gets to the final and who brings who. Like, that's the biggest thing now, because I think Rizzo and Savannah are on a collision course here. It feels like it's one or the other here. If somebody else other than them 2 wins, if it's Blue Sophie, I still wouldn't be totally floored, but I do think her win equity totally plummeted tonight. But she still would. I think she would still have a legitimate case because of all the things you mentioned with the underdog story, and I think she is a very good social player. But it's going to be Rizzo, Savannah, who's able to win enough challenges down the stretch, and who's able to make enough influential moves that benefit their games only, and who can plead their case the best. Because I do believe that one of them at least will be sitting in the final.
Is there a turn? Does a turn finally happen? We've teased it for weeks. We've talked about it for weeks. Does it happen?
I No, I don't think it happens.
I think we're past the point. I think we're past the point.
There's
I think it
only
actually
one
makes
vote
more
out left.
sense for them to bring each other at this point.
Yeah, at this point, there's only one vote out left, and we know Rizzo can't be voted out in said vote out. So in Final Four,
Yeah,
if there was,
well, that's a great point.
right, if there was a turn, it would be Rizzo wins final immunity, says, "Hey Savannah, you go do fire. I'll take Blue Sophie with me to Final Four, to Final Three." That would be the only turn. In that case, you're giving Savannah a chance to kind of make fire and have one last notch on her resume. I don't know if it's going to happen at this point. I think we are now at the Final Five. I think if you're going to do it, it would have to have been Rizzo idol list, which he still has his idol, so you can't do it to Rizzo at this point. And you'd have to do it where you have the numbers backing for sure to get Savannah out. And I don't know if either one of them have the.
Can we go further? Would have been last week. Would have been last week if you want to do it. It was one of the only times she was vulnerable.
7 at vulnerable. She was vulnerable at 7. She's obviously not vulnerable at 6. Rizzo's not going to be vulnerable at 5, and Final Four is fire. So yeah, no, we really have crossed that. I think now it probably is going to be. Here's what's interesting. One last final thought. Final Four, neither of them win immunity. Say it is Sophie who finally wins something.
Yes.
She says, "Hey, you two are going to make fire against each other tonight.
Yeah.
One of you gets to the Final 3. The other one goes home right now." And that would be an epic way to end the season. It's like, okay, Savannah, Rizzo, and fire. Winner goes to Final 3, and winner probably wins the show, if we're being honest here.
Right. I agree with that because I think
that would be dramatic.
We overvalue the final HOH and Big Brother a little bit too much. And you could argue the inverse in Survivor, but I think winning fire there would be so dramatic and taking out the other person. Yeah, I think that would mean something. What about, here's what I'm excited for. We get a preview for 50. I'm pumped about that. We're a week away now.
Can't wait for that.
And before we wrap up, I just want to mention this could be the final episode of the new era. They have a chance to make this the end of an era. And for that, what do you say? Because I think this is really on the table.
Can I say good riddance, or would that be too?
No, I don't think that's harsh enough.
Okay. I would say thank you for what it's been, but good riddance. I would like to see a new chapter, please. I think the later stages of 40 have been better than the early stages of 40, which is not a hot take at all. I think 41, 42, 43 were relatively abysmal. We've gotten some better ones here lately, 46, 47 specifically, but
yeah, 49's been solid. I think it's been a good new era season. We can put that caveat in there.
Of the 9 new era seasons, it's been certainly
Mike, if we didn't know the relative outcome, because I mean, you know the finale, but I don't know that. I just know the relative outcome, right? Do you think we would rank this season even higher? Do you think we'd put this toe-to-toe with like a 47?
It'd be maybe a notch below, but I think I would be more into this season if I did not know anything coming.
Yeah,
really well.
I think same.
Yeah. Like, it was the one where I believe it was the Alex vote where I would have genuinely been shocked had Alex gone home had I not known.
Right, exactly. 100% agree.
I would be like, wow, Rizzo did not use his idol. He's going to go home right now. That would have been my initial thought.
And that could have flipped the entire outlook of the season. And it's almost hard for me when I asked you that. In my head, I was like, I don't even know if I could really analyze that because so much has happened where there's supposed to be these dramatic moments, but we know what's going to happen. So if I could just try to separate myself, I think this would be a great season.
Real quick, I blame Jeff because I haven't done that all episodes. I want to blame Jeff again.
Go ahead.
I want to blame Jeff again because he already, and this never happens, but it does on like these themes, like heroes and villains we knew ahead of time that Russell would be on. So 19, I guess, if you watched that live, you would have been, oh, damn, he's on 20. But, and then on Winners at War, we knew the winners were going to come back.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So again, it was a little bit of like, okay, but now on 50, we know the cast before the season 49 cast is even played. So Jeff reveals the vote. 2 players from season 49 will be on season 50.
Well, not only that, Mike, time out. You want to, this is a term, sometimes they use in pro wrestling, sometimes they use this in like burying leads and stuff. Do you know what this does? It completely undermines season 49. Because you're like, here is season 50 with all these people you love. Oh, but we have to get through 49 sorry about that. You could have had the carrot dangling at the end where, hey, your reward for watching 49 is here is 50. And there are NDAs, there's going to be leaks, I get that, but there are ways around this, and I talked about this earlier. There's ways where you could have just said, like, everyone's signing an NDA. No one can talk about this, whatever it may be. You can't go on a podcast, whatever. There's a way to keep this secret, keep it in the bag still, and they just didn't even try.
The promotions for 50 were totally overboard, considering 49 had not even yet come out. They had not even
Yes.
premiered yet. So when Jeff
Jeff
reads
was
the
doing
vote,
like Good Morning America, talking about season 50 when 49 hadn't even happened.
guys, who's on 49? Can we at least know the people there? It's like we're talking about 50 already. And with him reading the votes out on the Instagram, on the Survivor Instagram reel thing, where he's unveiling who's on 50 before 49 is even aired. His last 2 votes he flips over are 2 players to be named later by season 49. Watch season 49 to find out. Had he just not even done that, had we not known, and I understand leaks would have happened anyways, but Jeff promoting it and telling us and confirming that 2 players from 49 were going to be on 50 lost the luster of the season. Had we known before 48 that 3 people were going to be on Survivor 50, I wouldn't have been like, I would have known Kyle, Camilla, Joe, whatever. But like him saying that about 49 immediately tells you, and then it gets like, okay, well, who are the 2 people? Because they're probably going to be on 50. They're probably going to be really good players. So once we find out who
but
were,
before we saw the official cast reveal, we saw plenty of fans with like leaked lists. Some of the names were right, plenty of the names weren't right, and that could have been because some people were shuffled down at the last second. It doesn't matter. You still could have had that intrigue where like this guy said, "Oh, this is definitely the list," but then there's at least like 5 or 6 names that are different, or someone dropped out, or whatever it may be.
That did happen.
You can still, you can still play with the idea of like the leak, but then also not have those names because it's just a leak at the end of the day. You could feed some false information. It's not hard.
Yeah, no, Jerry Manthe said that it came down. She was in like the very final parts of the cut list, and it was
a few people said this. I know. Yeah, they were one of them. Yeah,
Amanda Kimmel could have been possibly, but they didn't want to have her on the same season as Ozzy for obvious reasons. But yeah, there were people that were right on the cut line of okay, they're in the final process here, in the final stages of will they be on the show, and at the very end they got cut. Spencer from Cagayan was also one of the people that just got cut at the very end. And people on social media told you that they got cut at the very end because you would know they were very upset. The people that did not make it.
And again, there should have been some sort of NDA or something.
No
we
one
see this with
it.
Big Brother all the time.
Yes.
You're not allowed to know, and sometimes it gets out because that's just how the world works.
Of course.
But again, there's still something in place. There is something in place to prevent this. And the fact that Survivor couldn't figure it out is just so annoying because it not only diluted 49, sure, it rose up 50, but it also puts 51 in a really, really weird space where now, next fall, we're going to be here around the same time. We're looking at season 51 and we're wondering, is this the same old, which I think would lose a lot of people, Mike? I think it would lose a lot of people. Or is this a new chapter? And again, it doesn't have to be more days. It doesn't have to be a new location. It doesn't even have to be that. It has to be not just diverse people, but diverse ideas from different walks of life with different ideals, with different morals, all of that, while also bringing back some of those more interesting challenges.
Yeah,
yes, not just we're balancing a ball. We want the classics. We want like your Survivor auctions. We want some of that stuff, but we could also bring back some of the greats where we're doing like the equivalent of like mud wrestling. They've done that a ton in the early season. Some form or fashion of that. That was always fun. Or something where it's like they're doing this big puzzle, but they're in a race where everyone has a turn. So you really get to see who's kind of lacking and who's not. There's so many things they just don't do for no reason. They could adapt it, by the way. They could adapt those old ideals, but shifting to these challenges that are so repetitive year in and year out from these people that think the same year in and year out, at the end of the day, that's the word. The show has become repetitive, and we just simply need something new.
Well, they call it the new era, but a lot of former Survivor players and people on social media that I follow call it the low budget era, where they have cut out all the other things. They're doing the same things because it's repetitive, because it's easy to make.
It's cheap. They get to reuse it. Sure.
Like, okay, these are easy challenges to make for us. We can have a puzzle at the end, an obstacle course. We can do all the things. We can do it every year. We can do this exact same thing, 26 days, twice a year in the spring. We can easily do that. And they do. And it's they've cut on all the other things. They don't even do family visits anymore. They do family letters, but they don't even fly people out for the family visit. That's usually final 6, final 7. You get your loved ones challenge.
Which was always so dramatic because usually that's a reward challenge where someone has to pick the other families that get to see, the other ones just leave.
Just leave off the island. And sometimes you compete in the challenge with your loved one. And they would be
like, oh, that was fun. Yes.
I remember when it was the guy I can't remember his name, the guy for Ohio State, the Buckeyes, the running back, Eddie something. But
Eddie George?
Eddie George, he was on Survivor, because he was
With his wife
with his
Tosh.
wife.
Yeah.
Tosh,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. From Token Chains. Yeah. So she was on there with him, and it was like, holy cow, Eddie George. Everyone knows who Eddie
He's
George
in
is.
Exile Island, by the way. They
Yes.
literally go to Exile Island.
That was
It's
the
like
reward.
this orange desert-looking place,
It was sick.
and it's Eddie George, and he's a all-pro
On the show.
running back, borderline Hall of Fame guy, and
Yes.
he's just there. It's cool. And
It's
then
very cool.
even like I think of Poverty with her dad. They win a comp where they're like throwing water at each other. It's just fun. It's just fun. Also, it breeds the best moment of the show. One of them, anyway, the Johnny Fairplay grandmother incident.
Yes,
Like,
in Pearl Islands.
There are so many examples of these old tropes working. And again, they were all different. Yes, there was a family visit, but the comps were different. There were different rewards. There were different things they could do. There's all of that. And it just feels like right now, the show is trying its best to be paint by numbers, rinse by repeat. They have a strong fan base, which is undeniable. So rather than get new fans or increase, what you have, like get more viewers in, but also, just raise the profile of the show. You can have 6 million fans watching every week, but what if you had 6.5 million, but they were rabid fans talking about it constantly, right? Right now, they're just complacent with what they have. They're not trying to grow, and that's a problem, especially in today's society, the way everything works. Things fall out of favor, and I think Survivor is dangerously close to falling out of favor if they don't make a move.
If they really want to stay on this course, because Jeff mentioned, and he teased on it earlier, he's like, we can do Survivor as long as we can, as long as we keep up this exact same, what we do. Like, if we don't do anything crazy with
the margins work right now. The show's cheap.
Right now,
they have a residency. People still really like it, and so they have a ton of alumni they can pull from. Yeah,
but that is complacency. If they want to stay in this if they want to stay in the state that they're in right now, they can. But I do believe you will lose a heavy chunk of the OG followers of like, hey, this isn't the show we.
There's just no way there's enough of a pocket of the new era people that love the new era so much that they're going to lose that. That is just not reality.
No, you got to adapt at some point. And I think that in this 51 is such an important season for. Are you going to do anything new, or is it going to be more the same of what we've seen for the last 10 new era seasons? And I truly do hope we have something different. At least a little bit of the lust from the old age. Like, can you maybe blend the two a little bit and give us something a little bit different?
Can I make a prediction?
Sure.
Think it's going to be themed. I don't know what it's going to be. I think they're going to do a theme.
I agree.
I think there could be some returners on it. I think the reception of 50 matters dramatically. I think next Wednesday is important. I think if the show pops a rating or drops a rating, either direction, that can matter a lot. But I think more than anything, 50 is going to determine so much about the future of the show.
They've been doing themes for like 30 seasons prior to the new era, 35 seasons prior to the new era. Why can't they do more themes? I mean, it was one of those things. I don't know if you've watched. There's so many themes ones that it's obviously impossible. They had like 20 straight seasons of just themes to the point where at the very end it was like, what theme is this again? Edge of Extinction? It's like what? But either way, they had so many.
It was ridiculous between like the races. There's a race theme which is insane.
Cook Islands, it was four. It was literally race. It was divided into race. And it was the next season, I believe, was Panama, which was divided by age. It was like old women, old men, young women, young men. That was a famously Cerise season. And then you had fans versus favorites. So you had 10 fans and then 10 people that were voted back by by America.
By the way, great concept. Great concept. And there are ways to do things similar to that in the modern age. You could do a fans versus favorite. This would be the third one, right? So you could do that.
They were teasing a heroes versus villains too. The issue is there's not many villains in this new era. I mean, what would it be like?
No.
I mean, who's the villain in this era? There's not enough villains.
Savannah would be the 1-1 draft pick, would she not be?
Mean Girl, yeah, 100%. We need some villains.
Yeah, alleged. Yeah, it'd be tough.
She would be in there. I mean, Q wasn't a villain by any means. I mean, he's going to be back on 52.
No, you're 100% right. There's just not enough villains. You'd have to really dive into the bag, or you'd have to cast type people where it's like, I'm a corrections officer or something. I don't know.
The fact that I even brought up Q because he stole Applebee's from Liz is a villainous move, is the fact that we don't have many villains in this new era. There's not many villains.
No.
But they could do a heroes versus villains too, and that, by the way, is the best-selling season of the show. It's because it was a great theme. We had 10 people that America loved, 10 people that America loved to hate, and they played against each other, and it was great television. So we've had millennials, Gen X, we had that whole thing.
You could do some stuff that people have been clamoring for. You could do an early boot season, which I've always wanted, and I understand that's not the same as a fan favorite because fans don't necessarily have like bought interest in those people. But even then, I think it could still be something.
They were voted out so early.
You could do literally an underrated season where it's not necessarily early boots, but it's people that maybe left prematurely. and maybe even people that made it far that aren't respected enough, and you could tap into that. There were kind of these unique avenues you could go. You could do like a demographic thing. You could do like the Northeast versus the South. You know, you can do things.
They did one where they brought back 4 medevacs into one season and split up into tribes. I mean, they did that too.
Yeah.
It's like, you were
Yes.
medically evac from the game. We're gonna bring you back for a second time because you didn't have your your full survivor experience before. So they could do a theme like that. I mean, they've done a ton of themes to the point where people were getting tired of the themes. But now we've had 10 straight seasons of just 41, 40. They're just numbered seasons. There's nothing special about that. I mean, what is special about a numbered season? It's like, oh, we're Survivor 49. It's like, okay,
By the
we're
way,
making
they
it
shouldn't
different.
all be themed. I think that's a mistake, and I thought it was a mistake. But you have to mix them in.
Of course, you have to. That the first 10 seasons we had original ones, then we had Survivor All Stars. That was mixed in. Then a few seasons later we got a theme, which was the gender old women, old men,
Yes.
young women, young men. Then the next season was the race season, and then a few seasons later we had a bit of a break. Then we had the fans' favorite season. Then again a bit of a break, heroes villains. Then we had blood versus water like 5 seasons later. So we had playing with your loved ones. Then we had a few seasons later brains, brawn, and beauty. So they mix them in, but you have to mix them in the rotation, or you're just getting nothing. I mean, 10 straight seasons of nothing is just now. What is the significance? You lose your 49 and 46. Like, what's the difference between Survivor 49? There has to be some sort of significance that makes you differentiate from the other ones, or we just have 10 straight seasons of nothing.
Yeah, and it feels like they're typecasting the same people, which
Exactly. That's
we
the
don't
big
need to get into. But that
100%.
part of why the themes worked is you're forced to typecast different types of people. You're forced to typecast a beautiful person. You're forced to typecast a brainiac. You know, you're forced to typecast a strong person, right? Now there's nothing. You have to fit a diversity quota, which they were doing anyway, by the way, most of these seasons. So that
Yeah.
was never the problem. It's
Never a
what the people
problem,
looked like. It's what the people thought, what the people were, etc. So it's annoying. And yeah.
I hope that we get back to some kind of mix it in the rotation theme seasons, but we can't have 51 be exactly like or close to exactly like 41 through 49. That would be very depressing for both of us next fall for saying, hey, this looks
We'll
exactly
see
like 49.
next week. Next week is super important because I think
Yeah.
if the season ends in dramatic fashion and people love it, I think I would say expect more of this because they don't want to rock the boat. But if next week is a little bit lackluster and it's kind of a Savannah/Rizzo steamroll, I would say, okay, this could be the catalyst of something.
Sure. I know. I mean, I hope you're on the right track because I think 50 will be a big one too. I think 50 would be the end of whatever this is. I don't know what the rules are. I know there's 24 people on the cast, so that's immediately different from the 18 that we've been getting in the last 9 seasons. But 24 people in the cast, that might change how the game is played. It's gonna be much faster paced.
4 tribes of 6, maybe?
It's 3 tribes of 8, I believe.
Interesting. Okay, I
think
think I
it's-
prefer that actually.
Yeah, they're sticking with the 3 tribe format, which has now been the entirety of the new era of 3 tribes, starting out with 3
Right.
tribe format. So it's just instead of 3 tribes of 6, it's 3 tribes of 8, and there's 1 winner on each tribe, I believe. So we'll see how it goes.
I think I prefer that. I think I do. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Next week's going to be important. Next week's going to be great because we have the finale and we will be able to close this chapter. But yeah, make sure, as I mentioned earlier, we did a awesome NFL episode. We talked about the end of the Chiefs dynasty and kind of how weird the AFC is in particular. We broke some news in the middle.
Jerome Moore got canned
As-
in the middle.
Well, yeah, that was unbelievable. And details were developing afterwards, and we were texting, and we're like,
We
I
were.
can't believe this happened while we were on the pod. But regardless, make sure you guys are liking, commenting, and subscribing. I can't wait for next week because I'm a little slightly tired of the season, but I've enjoyed it enough.
It's been
It
solid. It's
picked
been
up a
solid.
little bit of steam here. So
It's passable. It's a solid season.
yeah, so I appreciate that. Anyway, we will see you next week for another edition of the Gurus on Reality podcast for the Survivor finale. Mike Testa is here. I am Xavier Aguiar, and we will see you next time. Peace.